My brother abandoned me in foster care at age 10. 16 years later, he showed up begging for forgiveness with a letter. But I threw his letter in the trash and slammed the door in his face. And what I did next, they'll never forget. I'm 28 years old. I work at a coffee shop in Portland. And I need to get this story off my chest because what happened like 6 months ago basically made me rethink everything I thought about second chances and family. The thing is, when I was 10 years old, my mom died in a car accident, and my older brothers, Brandon and Tyler, decided they didn't want to take care of me. Brandon was 23 and Tyler was 19. And I remember perfectly the day social services came to the house and told me I was going to go live with another family for a while. I remember asking Brandon if I could stay with him, and he didn't even look me in the eyes when he said no, that he had his own life to take care of, his job, his stuff. Tyler said something similar, that he was in college and couldn't, basically that I was going to ruin his plans. And just like that, at 10 years old, I ended up in the foster care system. I'm not gonna lie, the first few years were horrible. I went through 3 different families before I turned 14, and none of them really wanted me there. You know, it was more like they got the check from the state, and that was it. My brothers would call me every once in a while, like once every 2 or 3 months, always with excuses about why they couldn't visit me or take me for the weekend. Tyler would say he had exams, Brandon would say he was busy with work or his girlfriend, and I was a kid. I mean, I believed everything. I thought eventually things were gonna get better, that someday they'd come for me and I'd have a real family again. But the calls became less frequent. They went from every 2 months to every 6 months, and then they just stopped calling. I think the last time I spoke with Brandon was when I was like 12, and it was literally a 5-minute conversation where he sounded rushed, and I was trying to tell him about school, but he kept saying, okay, Ryan, I gotta go. When I turned 14, I was placed with the Hendersons, and that family, I don't, was different. Mrs. Henderson was an older lady who had already raised her own kids and decided to be a foster mom because, according to her, she still had a lot of love to give. Sounds cheesy, but it's the truth. She treated me like I was her own son. She'd go to my basketball games even though I was terrible. She'd help me with homework. She'd make me breakfast every morning. For the first time since my mom died, I felt like someone actually cared about me. I stayed with her until I turned 18. And when I aged out of the system, Mrs. Henderson cried like I was her real son. She told me I'd always have a place in her home if I needed it. And I believed her because in those 4 years, she never gave me reasons to doubt her. At 18, I was basically alone in the world. I had like $2,000 saved from summer jobs and a car that Mrs. Henderson helped me buy, a 2005 Honda Civic that made a weird noise when you accelerated, but it worked. I got a job at a warehouse making like $12 an hour, and rented a room in an apartment with 2 other guys. It wasn't much, but it was mine, you know? For the first time in my life, nobody could tell me what to do or where to live. I kept going like that for about 2 years, working, saving, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. In all that time, not once did I think about contacting my brothers. To me, they were dead. I mean, not literally, but emotionally, yeah. They'd had years to look for me, to ask how I was, and they never did. When I was 20, I decided I needed a complete change, like start from zero in a place where nobody knew me and I didn't have any memories of the past. I packed all my stuff, which basically fit in the car, and moved to Portland. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I literally disappeared. I changed my phone number, deleted all my social media, everything. I wanted to build a new life without the shadows of the past following me. The first few months were hard. I didn't know anyone and barely had money for rent and food, but somehow I made it. I found a cheap room in a shared apartment and got a job at a small coffee shop called Kim's Coffee. It was owned by this super nice Korean lady, Mrs. Kim, who hired me, even though I had no experience making coffee, because she said she liked me. Mrs. Kim was, I don't know how to explain it, like a second Mrs. Henderson. She taught me everything about coffee, how to make latte art, how to deal with difficult customers. She'd let me stay after closing to practice. She paid me more than she probably should have and always made sure I ate well, like she'd bring me homemade Korean food and force me to sit down and eat with her. After like 6 months working there, I already felt part of something. The coffee shop became my safe place, and Mrs. Kim became something like a mother figure. I started making friends, people who came to the coffee shop regularly, co-workers, and little by little Portland started feeling like my real home. When I was 22, I met Jessica. She'd come to the coffee shop every day to work on her laptop, always ordered the same thing, a cappuccino with almond milk and a blueberry muffin. One day when I brought her order, she asked if I wanted to sit with her on my break, and that's how it all started. Jessica was amazing. I mean, that's what I thought at the time. She was smart, worked in digital marketing, was funny, made me laugh all the time. We started going out, and after like 3 months, we were official boyfriend and girlfriend. I told her about my past, about my brothers, about the foster care system, everything. She was super understanding, told me she was sorry about everything that happened, and that my family were idiots for abandoning me. She made me feel validated, like my feelings of abandonment and anger were justified and not just me being dramatic. About a year into dating, I moved into her apartment. Jessica lived alone in a place much nicer than my shared room, and she basically begged me to move in with her. Said she'd love to wake up with me every day, that we practically lived together anyway because I spent every night there. She introduced me to her parents, Steve and Linda, who were one of those perfect families like a TV commercial, super warm and welcoming. They treated me like I was part of the family, invited me to Sunday dinners, birthdays, everything. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I had a real family. Not just a girlfriend, but a whole support network. Steve helped me fix my car when it broke down. Linda taught me her secret cooking recipes. It was everything I thought I wanted. The thing is, I had told Jessica from the beginning that I didn't want anything to do with my brothers. I explained that for me, that part of my life was closed, that there was no going back, that I didn't care if someday they wanted to reconnect because the damage was already done. She told me she understood completely, that she respected my boundaries, that she'd never do anything to betray my trust. And I believed her. Because, why wouldn't I believe her? She was my girlfriend. Supposedly she loved me and supported me unconditionally. But turns out like 6 months ago, on a normal Tuesday, I got a text message from a number I didn't recognize. The message said, "Ryan, this is Brandon, your brother. I know it's been many years, but I'd like to talk to you. Please don't ignore this message." I stayed staring at the phone like it was a bomb about to explode. My first thought was, how the hell did he get my number? I had changed everything. There was no way he could find me, unless... And that's when I realized. I asked Jessica directly, "Did you give my number to my brother?" And she got all defensive, started with a well, "Don't get mad, but..." She told me Brandon had found her on Facebook, that apparently he'd been looking for me for years and finally came across her because I appeared in some of her photos. He told her this whole story about how he regretted everything, how he'd been an idiot, how he wanted to make it up to me and have a relationship with me. And Jessica, in her infinite wisdom, decided she knew better than me what I needed and gave him my number without asking me. The confrontation we had was brutal. I yelled at her. She cried, told me she just wanted to help, that she thought forgiveness was important, that family is family no matter what. I told her she had no right to make that decision for me, that she had completely violated my trust, that the only thing I'd asked of her was to respect that boundary, and she couldn't even do that. She kept saying she was sorry, that she didn't think it would be such a big deal, that Brandon sounded so sincere and regretful. I asked her if she ever really listened to my story, or if she just pretended to understand, to look good. That night I packed my stuff and went back to a shared room I found on Craigslist. Jessica called me like 1,000 times, sent me messages saying we could work it out, that she'd made a mistake but she loved me. But for me there was nothing to work out. The trust was broken, and that was it. The worst part is it didn't end there. Like a week later, Steve and Linda showed up at the coffee shop during my shift. Mrs. Kim called me aside and told me there was a couple asking for me, and when I came out there they were. Steve asked if we could talk outside, and they basically gave me a sermon about how I was being immature, how Jessica only wanted what was best for me, how I should give my brother a chance because everyone deserves forgiveness. I told them as calmly as I could that I appreciated everything they'd done for me, but this wasn't their problem, and they needed to leave me alone. Linda started crying, saying they considered me like a son, that it hurt them to see me throw everything away. But the truth is, they never saw me as a real son. They saw me as their daughter's charity project, the broken kid who needed to be fixed, and forgive his family to have a movie happy ending. But wait, because it gets worse. Like 2 weeks after that, I'm in my new apartment on a Saturday afternoon, literally in sweatpants, watching Netflix and eating cereal straight from the box, and someone knocks on the door. I think it's the delivery I ordered or something. I open the door and there's Brandon, my brother, Brandon, who I hadn't seen in person in like 16 years, standing at my apartment door. He looks older, obviously. He's like 39 now, some gray hair, glasses he didn't have before. He says, "Hi, Ryan. I know this is weird, but I needed to see you in person." And I literally froze, didn't know whether to close the door in his face, yell at him, or what to do. He keeps talking, says he's sorry about everything, that he was a coward, that he was young and stupid and didn't know how to handle the responsibility, that he's been looking for me for years, that Tyler also wants to talk to me. I finally found my voice and told him to leave. I didn't yell, didn't get violent, just told him very clearly, I don't want anything to do with you or Tyler. You had 16 years to look for me, 16 years to call, to send a letter, whatever. You left me in the system, forgot about me, and now that I've grown up and have my life together, you want to show up and play happy family? I told him it doesn't work like that he couldn't just appear and expect everything to be forgotten because he felt guilty. Brandon started saying he understood, that he knew I had every right to be angry, but that, please, I'd give him a chance to explain, to make it up to me somehow. I asked him how the hell he knew where I lived, and he admitted Jessica had given him not just my number, but also information about where I worked, and basically everything. That made me even more furious. Like she literally handed me over to someone I was trying to escape from. I told Brandon I never wanted to see him again, to stop looking for me, to leave me alone. He looked devastated, honestly looked like he was going to cry, but I didn't care. I closed the door and stayed there standing, shaking from pure anger and adrenaline. After that, I decided I needed to move again. I couldn't keep living in a place where Brandon knew where to find me. I found another apartment across town, more expensive but worth it for the peace of mind. I changed my number again to a new one that only Mrs. Kim and my closest coworkers had. I basically disappeared again, but this time I took more precautions. The following months were weird. I felt paranoid all the time, like Brandon was going to show up out of nowhere again. I stopped posting anything online, didn't even have Instagram or Facebook active. I focused on work, Mrs. Kim promoted me to supervisor and gave me a raise, which was amazing because I really needed the extra money with the more expensive rent. I also started going to therapy, something I probably should have done years ago but never had the money or motivation. My therapist, Dr. Ross, helped me process everything. The abandonment, the anger, Jessica's betrayal. He told me something that stuck with me. He said I didn't have to forgive anyone to heal. That setting boundaries didn't make me a bad person. That prioritizing myself after years of being set aside was the healthiest thing I could do. Like 2 months ago, I ran into Jordan, a guy I met in one of the foster homes when I was like 13. It was super random. I was at the supermarket buying stuff for dinner, and he was in line behind me. We recognized each other immediately, even though years had passed, and we stayed talking in the parking lot for like an hour. Jordan had had a similar experience to mine, was also in the system, also had family that abandoned him. We exchanged numbers, my new number that nobody else had, and started hanging out regularly. It's weird to have someone who really understands what you went through without having to explain everything. You know? Jordan doesn't judge me for not wanting to forgive my brothers. He doesn't talk to his family either, and has no plans to change that. Last week, Brandon sent me a letter to the coffee shop. I don't know how he knew I still worked there. Probably asked Jessica or something. The letter was long, like 3 pages handwritten, where he explained everything that happened from his perspective. He said when Mom died, he was just starting his adult life, that he had a job he hated but needed to pay his bills, that he had a girlfriend who left him shortly after. Tyler supposedly was in college on a scholarship and was afraid of losing it if he took time off to take care of me. Brandon wrote that he thought the foster care system would be better for me than living with him, that he had no idea how to raise a kid and thought it would be selfish of him to try to do it badly. He said, over the years the regret grew, that he tried to find me but I had completely disappeared, that when he finally located me, through Jessica, he thought it was his only chance to make things right. I read the whole letter, and I'm not gonna lie, part of me felt something. Not forgiveness, but maybe some understanding, that they were also dealing with Mom's death in their own way. But you know what? That doesn't change anything. It doesn't change that they left me alone when I needed them most, that they stopped calling, that they basically forgot about me. It doesn't change that I spent years in homes where they didn't want me, that I grew up without a real family, that I had to learn everything alone. Brandon can regret all he wants, can write 1,000 letters, but that doesn't give me back my childhood. That doesn't erase the nights I spent crying because I felt completely alone in the world. You can't just show up 16 years later and expect everything to be fixed with an apology. I threw the letter in the trash after reading it. I didn't respond to him. Don't plan to. The truth is, I'm not as angry as I was before. I'm more in a place of indifference, and I think that's even more final than anger. Anger means you still care somehow, but indifference means you already got over it and moved on. That's what I'm doing, moving on. I have my job at the coffee shop. I have Jordan as a friend. I have Mrs. Kim, who's more family to me than Brandon or Tyler ever were. I'm saving money. Mrs. Kim is teaching me about the coffee business, and eventually I want to open my own place, something small but mine. Do I regret how things turned out? Sure. In an ideal world, I would have had brothers who supported me when Mom died. I would have grown up with a family that loved me. But you can't live in the what-ifs. You have to live in reality. And reality is, I built a life for myself alone, without help from anyone who shared my blood. And I'm proud of that. I don't need Brandon's forgiveness or redemption to be happy. I don't need an emotional reconciliation to feel like I'm worth something. I learned that lesson a long time ago, when I was 10 years old and realized the only person I could really trust was myself. I guess there are people who think I'm bitter or that I'm passing up an opportunity to have family again. Jessica probably thinks that. Her parents definitely think that. But they don't understand. They can't understand because they've never been in my position. It's easy to talk about forgiveness and second chances when you've never been abandoned like that. I made the decision that's best for me, for my mental health, for my peace. And maybe it sounds selfish, but honestly, I don't care. I spent too many years of my life feeling like I wasn't important enough for someone to stay, and I'm not going to feel that way again. Yesterday, Jordan and I went for coffee after my shift, and we were talking about future plans. He's thinking about moving to Seattle for a new job, and he told me I should consider opening my coffee shop there because the coffee scene is amazing. I don't know if I will. Portland feels like my home now, but I like having options, you know? I like knowing I can go wherever I want, do whatever I want, without having to explain to anyone or ask permission. That freedom is something I never had as a kid, and now that I have it, I'm not going to let go of it for anything. So, yeah, that's basically my story, I guess. A guy who was abandoned, who survived, who built something for himself, and who decided some doors are better left closed. And I'm okay with that. I'm really okay.